whoever answers your disaster notification, that could be National Dispatch, it could be a third-party vendor, it could be somebody in the region answering that, it could be that it's going directly to some sort of a shared phone, but whoever's getting that information is, if that person isn't a duty officer, it's possible that the duty officer could actually be capturing that information, but assuming that that person is not the duty officer, that they're actually acting as the dispatcher, when that event is entered into the system, if there's a manual duty officer schedule, then the dispatcher is going to manually just call the duty officers on the schedule in the order that they appear. If it's an automatic schedule, then the duty officers actually get an automatic notification that will come to them based both on their notification preferences that they've set up in the system as well as who's actually signed up at the time. The duty officer then acknowledges the event, logs into RCView, makes a determination about the response, and perhaps adds additional information about the event. So again, if you don't have dispatchers, your duty officer's schedule is pretty much just going to provide regional awareness for who is on call, and your duty officer could fill the role of a dispatcher and actually capture that information in RCView. So this is how RCView associates the event to the schedule. So we have the event address that's been associated with the county and the DAT response area or territory, tied to the duty officer schedule, and then the duty officers who are actually rostered to that schedule. So when you're creating a schedule, you're going to follow this workflow. So in initiating the process, you're first going to define the schedule's geography. So is it covering a county, multiple counties, who the editors are who can go in and make changes to the schedule, whether that notification type is going to be automatic or manual, and then other information that's captured at the details tab, and also to ensure that the schedule is not adversely affected by the switch to or from daylight savings time. There's a setting that you make in the options tab as well. Other work that you'll do in setting up the schedule is determining what shift patterns are going to be followed and the minimum and maximum values for scheduling. And so the shift patterns can vary depending on the position. You may have some shifts that are going to be as short as 6 or 8 hours. You may have other shifts that are going to be days or weeks even. And then the minimums and maximums determine both how many people would be called on an automatic schedule as well as the number of people who are allowed to sign up for any given shift. You associate the duty officers, the people filling that duty officer role, with the schedule at the Resources tab. That's basically just saying that these people are now, they're allowed to sign up for a shift on the schedule. And then assign the duty officers to shifts, or the duty officers can sign up for shifts via the DAT app. Now, if they're using the DAT app was created for the DAT responders and not the duty officers. So unlike the DAT numbers, the DAT app doesn't prevent duty officers from that more than one person could be signed up for a shift. That could lead to confusion if you're using an automatic schedule with multiple people getting notified. So you might want to either discourage duty officers from using the DAT app if you're using an automatic schedule, or at least know that you're going to need to keep an eye on those schedules to work to resolve any sort of overbooked shifts. And you also have two different options when selecting the geography for your DAT schedules, and your duty officer schedules. And there's no real right or wrong way to do this. It really depends on what works best for your region and the coverage that your region needs. So a duty officer schedule can cover one or more counties, or it can cover DAT response areas or territories. The important thing is not to try to cover a mix of both counties and DAT response areas, and then you want to make sure that that you also don't end up leaving any gaps in coverage. So this particular screen just shows you that there's the option here to select county, and then if they were listed, the other options for territories would be down here. And Claire's going to show you that here in just a little bit. So your DAT response areas or territories, these are the geographical regions in which a DAT member could potentially respond to a DAT event. and those are going to be associated with a single active DAT schedule. They have clear geographical boundaries, and they're being created right now as part of the DAT dispatch implementation process. So they're being added to the corporate geography that we already maintain in the system, regions in your chapters, and it's just subdividing that even further. So if your region is going to build your duty officer schedules based on DAT response areas and not on counties, you would need to get the information about those DAT response areas from your implementation lead. Again, no real right or wrong way to do this. For the regions that are already live using RCView today, some have duty officer schedules that cover an entire state or a region. Others have them divided up maybe by chapter boundaries or some other division of multiple cities or multiple counties. So when you go to create a duty officer schedule, you're going to start with the Details tab, and you're going to add the option to make sure that the time zone stays appropriate to the time zone that you follow. At the Edit Resource Structure, you're going to be adding information such as the shift patterns that you want your schedule to follow, as well as the mins and maxes for how many people you want to be able to sign up at any given time. You're going to search for and add the resources, so you're going to search for people that are in your region who need to be associated with that schedule, and then you'd actually go ahead and roster them and assign them shifts if they're not going to be signing up for those shifts on their own. So before you get started in the system, it helps to attend to a few things. So first of all, you need to make sure that you can log in. So if you haven't already tried that, you should try to log into RCView DAT Dispatch and make sure that you have access to the Regional Leadership Dashboard. If you don't, your implementation lead can make that request for you, and it'll be taken care of for you. Take a look at the job tool that's out on the exchange about creating and managing duty officer schedules. The long job tool. It has, because it includes screenshots and step-by-step instructions for all of the things you need to do, but it's good to have a copy of it, take a look at the table of contents and understand that kind of what's inside there for reference, and then also access that checklist for the duty officer schedule creation. And then if you're going to create your duty officer schedules based on a DAT response area or territories and not counties, then you'd need to get that list of your region's DAT territories from your implementation lead.
And start the demo. So I'm going to share my desktop. And just got to navigate to the right screen here. Here we are. So first I'm going to show you how to log into RCView for those of you who have never done that before. So in order to log into RCView, first I'm going to open my browser. I'm going to search for rcview.redcross.org. Ideally, I'm going to be using either Google Chrome or Firefox as my browser. So I browse to rcview.redcross.org, and I scroll down so that I can log in. Here I'm going to enter the same login credentials as I would use to log in to Volunteer Connection. And I click Sign In. Once I click Sign In, it's going to bring me to the landing page here. And in order to access the DAT dispatch side, I'm going to click on the DAT tile here on the left. That's going to take me to the login, to the DAT dispatch page. So for the purposes of the rest of the demo, I'm actually going to be using our training environment. So it might look a little bit different than the live version of RCView when you log in. In order to determine if you have regional leadership access, you can hover over the home tab here on the left-hand side. And if you see the regional leadership tab here at the top, that means you have the proper access. As Anna mentioned, if you, after you check your access and you don't have that regional leadership tab, please contact your implementation lead and they'll be able to make an additional access request on your behalf. So now we want to begin to build our first duty officer schedule. So to initiate that process from our regional leadership dashboard, we're going to come over here to the Manage Schedules tab. So I'm going to click on that tab. And to start the process of creating a new duty officer schedule, I'm going to select New Duty Officer Schedule. here it opens up a new tab where I can begin building my duty officer schedule. You can see there are several items I can put in here, including the name. I can add an editor. I can enter the time zone, as well as fill in additional details.